Excellent. Sorry, just double checking everything's working. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Book from Scratch. Yes, that's correct. Sorry, it's been so long since I've done this, I've actually forgotten the title of my own live streaming. This is, in case you haven't seen any of the other 23 episodes to come and go, this is an author writing a book live. Now, I have discovered, I thought that this was a unique live streaming series, but it's not. There are actually a bunch of authors out there doing exactly the same thing. So go find and watch those, because I've already viewed a few. They're brilliant, and they're doing it slightly different to me. So that means, well, hopefully you'll learn something from me as I write. You'll learn something from them as well, and that might fit your writing style better than mine would, or my methods. I will say that there is really, like, there's no wrong way to write a book. There is such a thing as bad writing, that's for sure. But there is no wrong way to write. Well, actually, that's not true. I mean, if you captured 1,000 monkeys and asked them to type and set them up at 1,000 typewriters and got them to write your book for you, that's wrong. But like as long as you ending up with a printed book at the end, well, you finished with a book at the end, thanks to the help and hints and tips of all these other authors and their ways of writing books, and you didn't compromise your morality along the way, then you're probably fine. So there's no wrong way to write a book, though, within that context. So, but I'm back. Yes, it has been 2 months since I last did this. I'm very sorry if you've been waiting for it. I hope a lot of you have. And the reason why it's taken me so long is that if you're on YouTube and you look down, yes, that's correct, there is a new poster right here. It's called Half Human, The Prison Key. That's a new book I've been working on. Although, actually, no, it's not a new book I've been working on, because it was a project that I did with my school where I work at. I'm a librarian. And we wrote and published our own book series. Half Human, The Prison Key, down there, is the first one in that particular series. So that's why I'm advertising it today. And this episode is sponsored by Half Human, The Prison Key, released by Spaceboy Books in 9 days time, 2nd of December. You can pre-order on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, I think a couple other places. And so please do that if you're interested in reading a book written not just by me, but by students as well. So I'm going to just get straight back into it today. I'm going to assume you've watched previous episodes and understand exactly what this is all about. Fine, I'll recap it. You twisted my arm. I'm writing an anthology. Every single book is, like, it's not a separate character and a separate issue within a wider universe. Each book is essentially like a fantasy or a cowboy or a pirate or romance or horror story that completes this much bigger fantasy novel. So I finished in the last episode the first chapter, and I'm going to have to expand this window here so you can kind of see. Oh dear, how do I do this? Ooh, that's not good. Right, so basically down here, and it doesn't work great, even though I made sure it would. Come on, work your flipping pencil. Oh well. Apple Pencils decided to give up the ghost. Anyway, this is what we kind of did last. We started with the prologue, which is an introduction to Fortis and Huxton, who are the main characters of this particular series, where their village is attacked by, like, animated armor kind of creatures. More about them later. So now we have to get to this second chapter, which is them, like, getting ready to go. So they've decided to become essentially adventurers. We're going to flesh that, like, what that actually means later as we go. That's one of my methods, is to essentially start writing and fill in as we go, and sort of cut and link and rejig everything afterwards. That's just my thing. If you can do the whole, write it all in one go, have it all planned out, so all that writing links along the way, you can do that. Nothing wrong with that at all. It's another method. But my method is to do some planning, write it all out, see what happens as we go, because some characters will surprise you and you start to like them and you want them to stick around. Other characters don't do that for you. Other characters just prove themselves worthy of just being killed off straight away, or when you planned. But I like to, I like to see where the story goes and make changes as we go. So at the end of the last chapter, Fortis and Huxton had taken an active role in helping the village to defeat these animated armor, and along the way they kind of did what every good adventurer does, and they managed to fight off the animated armor. They galvanized the village, and in some ways what it was, it seemed quite normal in the sense that they did a rousing speech and they fought it, and it was kind of epic in its own. It's all contained in a small village, but it's epic in its own way, and that's good. But there was also I tried to put it in clearly that there was more to it than just the typical fantasy fighting a battle, and that Fortis and Huxton have kind of stumbled on a way of dealing with a typical problem that arises in a fantasy story, in a hopefully unique kind of way, and that was by finding an alternative to the typical stuff, like in that they got the entire village to become soldiers very quickly, in an instant. And if you think about it, that's what should happen more in fantasy stories. That it shouldn't always just be like the small number of heroes who do something. Why isn't everyone just getting involved? Everything would be solved so much quicker if they did, rather than relying on a small group of people to get everything done for you. And that's the theme of this story, in that it's not a critique of fantasy, it's just to suggest that it kind of takes a line that I remember from The Hobbit, when Gandalf says that Saruman thinks that great power is what is needed to defeat evil, but I think it's the little day actions of ordinary folk keep holding back the darkness. And that's kind of a basis for this, because it's about how doing things differently, involving everyone, fixing problems that actually cause the big problems in fantasy adventures, actually brings the peace around while maintaining an epic adventure. So that's where we are. They've just decided they're going to go do this. That happened at the beginning of the first chapter. It's time to move on to... Actually, before I do that, I need to check. Did I actually call this a prologue? Book 1, fantasy... No, good. Chapter 1. So I'm going to it's not really a prologue, but let's just continue. Chapter 1. Now, if you probably can't see my notes down here, but it basically, I was thinking there'd be a time skip, maybe a couple of months, and they go from here straight to signing up. And I've decided not to do that. I'm ignoring this now, and this is why I don't do the entire plan first. I'm skipping that, and instead I think it's best to sort of do a journey for Fortis and Huxton, and for that journey to be to essentially inform them, to essentially to give them some experience, rather than do the time skip, which I think would be at this point it's a bit disconcerting for the readers to just have this time skip right here and then. It's fine to have large time skips within a story. It's just that I don't want that prologue large time skip, then they're ready. I kind of want to do the process of them being experienced, learning things about themselves as they go through the motions of being in a typical fantasy universe. That's what I've decided upon. Sorry, the thing has disappeared for a bit while I try to get my Apple Pencil working. This is not sponsored by Apple, unfortunately. Let's hope that's worked. And let's hope we can reconnect. So, what I'm going to just do on this screen, actually, if it all connects, work as it should. Yes, it's coming back. Cool. Let's put this in the center so you guys can see it. I'm just going to do a bit of planning for this thing, and this is actually all coming to me new now, because I kind of made the decision, and I haven't done any plans off screen because this is all live, so I kind of want you to see where it goes. So, Fortis, oh dear, that's too big. Fortis and Huxton, I'll do a medium. So I just like to do F and H. I know that means Fortis and Huxton, that's still too thick. So Fortis and Huxton decide to leave. So this is essentially the next day. So we know it's going to take place in morning. So I know what to describe. Describe the crisp morning at the edge of this swamp where Fortis's parents live. There obviously has to be a conversation with parents. And as you can tell, there's no... well, if you've read the first chapter, there's no prophecy here. Fortis and Huxton are not the destined people to do something. Conversation with... so they're going to have to convince their parents somehow that to let them go and do this. They're late teenagers, shall we say. So it's, you know, they're nearly at adulthood, so they can probably get over the fact that they probably get their parents to think, oh, we can let them go. They're kind of adults now, because that's what you get because it's fantasy, it's kind of medieval-ish, so there's room to you can accept that they're kind of adults now, and you know, we ask adult things of our late teenagers anyway. So it's the morning, they obviously have to have a conversation with their parents about what they do next. This is where I'm going to introduce something epic for this, is Snakar. So Snakar is, if in case you don't know, but in case you're joining me today, Snakar is essentially, it's not the god, but in the universe you've got, everything is on the back of this giant snail. I thought it'd be very whimsical, very nice to have that as part of it. And what Snakar does sometimes is that his eyes will sometimes look down upon the world, you know, stretching out and looking down on the world in order to watch something he knows is going to, or she, can't remember what a snail's gender is. I'll go with it for now. So Snakar will look upon the world because it knows that something incredible is going to happen, and that's going to happen in this chapter. Now, what's going to be interesting is the reaction. Is that, what does the priest? There's a priest in the village. What does he say? Priest says about that, and his interpretation is going to be critical and set part of the theme. So the town will see it as a prophecy, but I want the priest to be a wise guy who's giving us, the reader, the wisdom, a lesson here, and that he wards them off that fact, and it's just something significant. Anything can happen. Anything can happen. This sort of helps them to... the village lets them go. The village has to let them go. Now that will typically be the end of the chapter, but I feel I need a bit more. They have to... oh, hang on a minute. Rather than the village let them go, gather the stuff, then now what I'm going to do is, like, I'm going to put this ×2 here. Snakar up here, sorry. Snakar's going to do it twice, since he has has 2 eye stalks. One will head down and look at them, but another one's going to go somewhere else, and then we're going to see where that goes, and new character going forward. And also this gives me a chance to introduce where Fortis and Huxton are going to go ahead of time. Introduce, I'm just going to call it the Central Castle for now. Okay, so I've got a rough plan. I can start moving forward with the typing. So it's the morning after the event. Let's scale this back down. Across. Make it look nice. YouTube channel. Back to it. Right. Distance. I guess it must still. When did this happen? It would have been. Okay, it's fine. I'm going to set it as being lost. So morning's fine. Now it's a fantasy universe. You have to describe things. You have to really set the tone. Not tone. The setting. You have to really get people to believe that they're there. And I think if it's more than likely they would have kept celebrating into the night. So Fortis and Huxton should wake up having been celebrating. If you're this is kind of a writing tip. If you're going to continue chapter to chapter, the best way to know what to write next is to think about what could logically happen, and then pick up from there. Like I could say that they woke up in their beds after celebrating last night, but you also want to show, not tell, as much as possible without it becoming like OTT. So, like, if they were celebrating, would they have had time to go back to beds? They're obviously teenagers. I'm not going to say they got drunk on mead or whatever. Instead, they would have fallen asleep. No, they would have gone back to their beds. Like, there wouldn't have been the kind of revelry because, like, people would have died in this previous attack. They would have still had to take the bodies of the animated armor and pile them up somewhere. And then they all... But I want Fortis and Huxton to be in the same place. So Fortis wouldn't have gone to his swamp home, which is nearby. They would have all slept in the village. Maybe it's time to get... In the last chapter, I was kind of mostly in Huxton's head. He's the human. Obviously stick with him as much as possible, but now might be time to get into Fortis's head as well. So we'll start with Huxton. Now, does he like wake up slowly and like he would have been very tired. Huxton's eyes fluttered open. Fluttered open. Fluttered open. Fluttered open. That's Now, Snakar's eyes are also the suns of this world, like the sun, literally the sun. So everyone has a dual shadow in this world. Huxton's eyes fluttered open as the light from Snakar's. Snakar? I mean, I've written K-A-R, but what did I write on the... Where is it? Oh, well, yeah. Sorry, it's K-R seemed better than K-A-R to me. But I'll stick with it for now and add this to the dictionary as well. Huxton's eyes fluttered open as the light from Snakar's... Snakar's eyes awoke the world. Awoke his world. His? Okay, it's time for some research. You'll be doing this a lot when you write, by the way, I think. Snails. Gender. Most snails are hermaphrodites, meaning they both have male and female. So they're both. So just looking at the correct gender terminology here for this. It's also fun to keep that going for Snakar himself. Person who It's kind of hard. I want to get it right. Okay, it's going to be hard. Why did I go with his? No, because I said it. Okay, Huxton's eyes fluttered open as the light from the awoke its world. Although it's, for the time being, its world. It is its world because it's on the back of its nail. Huxton's shell. Huxton's eyes fluttered open as the light from Snakar's eyes awoke its world. Dust motes danced in the air. Dust motes danced in the air court. Yeah, okay. Set using dust motes is such an obvious thing, though, isn't it? Huxton's eyes fluttered open as the light from Snakar's eyes awoke its world, and him specifically. No, because that sounds like it's only him who's waking. It's awoke its world. Oh, trusty Thesaurus, I think, now. Thesaurus. I don't want to... Obviously you can, when you write, repeat words over and over again, but you need a significant break. Otherwise, your readership kind of notices... What's not helping? Huxton's eyes fluttered open as the light from Snakar's eyes awoke its world. I want to use dust motes, but I don't at the same time. As the darkness retreated, the corners of his room or beneath. As darkness retreated into the corners of his room or beneath his furniture, Huxton simply stared out across his room. Not seeing, just thinking. He and his friend had made a monumentous decision yesterday. He and his friend had made a monumentous decision yesterday. Now, sleep had stolen away the... Oh, what do you call it when... Now, he and his friend had made a monumentous decision yesterday, yet sleep had stolen away some of the passion, some of the drive, some of the ambition. No, not ambition. The excitement of they had decided upon dragging the empty armor into a pile, fighting like sleep, and seeing the dead had changed. Fighting back, dragging the empty armor pieces into a pile, fighting back sleep, so as not. Fighting back sleep and seeing the dead had painted. No, had given him a new perspective reminded him of the pleasant life he had in a home that was warm and familiar. Now, waking up the next day, put everything seemed waking up the next day seemed to put years, not hours, between the attack and the peace that once again fell on the village. Could you read it? Right, best to explain why I've typed all of that. Okay. Obviously, at the beginning, situate where this is happening for your reader. Huxton's eyes fluttered open as the light from Snakar's eyes awoke its world. As the darkness retreated into the corners of his room, giving the impression that the light's coming through the windows, and as you know, shadows shrink as the light comes. Slowly, as the sun rises, or in this case, the eye stalk of a giant snail. As the darkness retreated into the corners of the room or beneath his furniture, Huxton simply stared out across his room, not seeing, just thinking. He and his friend had made a monumentous decision yesterday, yet sleep had stolen away some excitement about some of the excitement of what they had decided upon. So what I want is to question it and reaffirm it in their minds. Put it in a slightly different perspective today than they did in the previous chapter, when the excitement of an attack and being a very pivotal person in getting rid of the armor, galvanizing the village. Now, what does one more sleep do? So first, dragging the armor pieces into a pile. That's work. That's hard physical labor. Fighting back sleep. This is what I wanted to add here. Like, fighting back sleep. Like, they're teenagers. They should just go to bed. The whole village should say, go to bed, go. Because they were all, in that last chapter, they were trying to get rid of, like, saying, go to the village, the orc village, and be safe there. That obviously couldn't have happened. But I kind of want to give the impression that Fortis and Huxton are now trying to be adults. Show that they're, like, fight back sleep because they want to do their part. So I'll do their part. That's what I need. Dragging the empty parts into a pile, doing their part while fighting back sleep, and seeing the dragging the empty armor into a pile, doing their part while fighting back sleep, and seeing the dead had given him a new perspective. Lying in bed, drifting off, and reminded me. Okay, I need to separate this out and expand this before I get to this. These two things don't connect all that well. So in this bit, I've clearly given the reader an indication that Huxton was troubled by not the adventurous part of what they had done, but the reality of it. So the hard work of the cleanup, which you don't seem to see in stories. Obviously, you don't seem to see in stories. At the end of Lord of the Rings, you don't see, like, the Black Tower's full, Barad-dûr explodes, but you don't see everyone else having to pick up all the dead bodies they had. It seems less epic when you see those things, which is why we don't see those things in the story, and that's kind of fine. But that should change you. He and his friend, so this part highlighted doesn't connect too well, because this paragraph is about him reminiscing on the fact that going to sleep gave him more time to think, but it doesn't quite link up here. One is about what he saw yesterday, one is the time spent in bed being able to think. So I need to add something in here. He and his friend made a monumentous decision today, yet sleep had stolen away some of the excitement of what they decided upon. Dragging the empty... Oh, hang on. So dragging the empty out is about doing their part while fighting back sleep. A new perspective. He had... No, I don't want to do. I was going to say in the stories, but that's almost a trope now, a cliche, for them to reference the stories and what real life is about. That's like a Game of Thrones kind of thing about how in Game of Thrones they constantly talk about how silly the old tales are and how life is much harder and you have to approach life differently, while also making the suggestion that life should be more like the story in some such sense. Okay, doing their part while fighting back sleep and seeing the dead are giving them a new perspective. Not perspective. Perspective seems a bit... doesn't seem fantasy enough, does it? Dragging him to answer, doing their part while fighting back sleep. And... dead. Soured. The victory in a way. That made Huxton shameful. Yes. He had ridden high up. No, he had rejoiced. He had rejoiced at victory. You brought. He had rejoiced at victory and he for it words yet, which had been snatched. The jobs that need clear by the duty here at the village. I don't want to say the dead. I need to dress that up a little bit in more fantasy, not fantasy language essentially, but better, something better, which had been dulled by the duty of the village, and to sort of reference the loss of the people in the village have experienced. He had rejoiced at victory and the euphoria of the war, which had been dulled by the duty of the village, and lives whose stories had ended. Does that right? It sounds poetic enough. Is I guess what I was going. Which had been dulled by the duty of the village, and the lives and the people whose stories had ended. Which had been dulled by the duty of the village, and knowing. Some people's stories had ended. Okay, this also sets up something in order for Huxton to, in a way, move beyond these thoughts. By stories had ended, people had died, he can reframe what he wanted to do to save people. But the problem is, didn't I cover that in the last one? We could okay, good. They don't really, in the previous chapter here, for example, they don't talk about death, so to speak. They're not talking about saving people's lives. They framed it in bringing peace. So they framed it in a big, epic sort of way. And now Huxton has to deal with the fact that it's not like that. The reality is much harder. And he can now reframe it away from like bringing peace, but making sure people's stories don't end, which have been dulled by the duty of the village and knowing that some people's stories had ended. Okay, what I need to do is talk about this shameful part. He had explained it a bit more. He had wished himself wishing as when he finally went into bed that there had been a celebration like been a celebration likes of which the village had never held before. To marvel at their accomplishment. One the whole village would feel the honour of. You don't feel honour, would you? To marvel at their accomplishment, one the whole village would share the honour in. One the whole village would draw honour from. No, would. I'll just put find honour for now. Come back to that later. To marvel at their accomplishment, one the whole village would find honour. One in which? No. One where the whole village would find honour. He found himself wishing when he had climbed into bed that there had been a celebration the likes of which the village had never ever held before. To marvel at the accomplishment, one where the whole village would find honour. He didn't have a right. He didn't have a right to such a wish. He knew it now. Lying in bed, drifting off, had reminded him of the present. Hang on. Okay, two things then. So I'm actually framing what Huxton does next by realising there's more to it than just the epicness of winning a battle, and then deciding we're going to bring peace to this land. Instead, it's that, and now how his old life has crept back into his soul and makes him want to stay there. So that's these two things. So in some sense, I can connect them by suggesting that finding, with the peace coming back into his soul, he can walk away from it. He can just hold like the difficulty of being an actual adventurer who goes out and does things and brings peace to the world, but also deals with the reality of that. Maybe he can walk away from it if he he can almost undo the shamefulness of not realizing the reality of it by using the excuse that, hey, this is actually a good life, maybe I should stay here. Which also then means I then need to put in why he doesn't agree, why he agrees with it in a different way, and why he still decides to go through with it. He didn't have a right to such a wish. Still got to connect these things. He didn't have a right to such a wish. Maybe he didn't deserve it. Maybe he didn't deserve to fight on as he had planned with his best friend. Okay, so first we can do about how lying in bed, drifting off, had reminded him of the pleasant life he had in that home that was warm and familiar. Now waking up next day seemed to put years, not hours, between the attack and the peace that had once again fell on the village. He pulled his blanket over his body. So I was going to say keep off the chill of the morning. However, I just said it was warm and familiar. So while obviously I meant warm and familiar normally, get a fire going, that kind of thing, it doesn't work when I reference heat. Him trying to keep warm now. So I can't do cold. He pulled the blanket over his... No, sorry, I won't have him pull the blanket over his body. He turned from his side... Okay, actually, I have done that. So, when I said he's like staring out of the room, you can't stare at the room by lying on your back looking at the ceiling. That's a different perspective. So, I kind of set up in the reader's mind, he's on his side, looking out over his bedroom. So, he turned from his side and lay on his back. Blanket falling awkwardly. There we go, his body. You didn't expect this. You didn't expect... No, I can't say something like that. Silly. He turned it from his side and lay on his back, his blanket falling awkwardly. Not awkwardly, because... No, we don't even need to reference it. Side. Hooked the ceiling. Did not. Now, working on the next day seemed to put years, not hours, between you taken. The smell. Dripping. If you're following along, so I should be saying it as I'm going. Okay, because it's a fantasy, I need to be describing, what's happening. So, and flesh out the universe, make it feel really real. Put smells and textures and tastes and the setting clearly in the mind of the reader. I think it's fair to say that fantasies need to do this. They need to sort of not just world build this brand new universe, but they need to also build a clear image of where we are, given that it's so much different than where we are. Like fantasies are in the past, so it's more rustic, it's medieval, the technology is less. The houses are feel warm when there's a roaring fire going on, but if you think about it, they must be incredibly drafty. There's not a lot of light. There's a lot of nature around. That's why, so fantasies really need to put the reader in like where this is happening, because it's so unfamiliar to be for most readers to be in this kind of setting. So I'm trying to, with this whole section, is making go. For English breakfast, or bacon sarnie, that kind of thing. Smell breakfast wafted under his bedroom, and the thought of dripping fat from a rind of bacon and the crunchy then soft fried potatoes made his mouth water. Would he have to give that up on the coming journey? As he strode out to face its face, not just the villains, but its darkest. Would he have to give up? Would he have to give that up on the coming journey as he strode out into the world to face not just the villains? See, villains, which gives the sense that, like, your classic, like, mustachioed villains twirling their moustaches and monologuing on grand plans. There's a real danger out there. I'm not going to describe this danger in real gritty terms, but I'm still going to make it clear. Would he have to give that up on the coming journey as he strode out into the world to face not the villains, but as he now realised, the darkest. The darkest, most troubling parts. The darkest, the most troubling places in the world. This seems too ordinary language for a fantasy. No, it's the darkest and most troubling. Let's see if this lucky good old thesaurus can help me out. Trying places again, and regions, no. Zone, venue, no. Realities. The world had kept from him so far in his short life. Could he really do this? Now I'm going to give Fortis... no, sorry, not Huxton. What I'm doing is switching now to Fortis's viewpoint to get inside his head a bit. Oh, actually, wait, stop. Do I want to do this? In other chapters, I am going to POV flip. Because I'm going to go to where... Okay, he's called Bob, but he's the Sauron of this story. So I'm going to sort of Bob's POV. At the end of this chapter, I'm going to someone else's POV. I think I just have to embrace this now. Maybe go back to the first chapter and add Fortis's POV somewhere there too. So it seems organic from the very first chapter as opposed to doing it now. Fortis turns over in his makeshift bed, a pew in the chapel. Chapel to the car. He felt of. His eyes shot open soon. Easy from the wherewithal. There's how you spell it. To give him the wherewithal to catch himself. Now this is actually kind of a humorous way, which oh no, this is too much of a juxtaposition between what I can't do it. As funny as I thought it was, he can't. Like, Huxton's been taking this very seriously. To have Fortis's awakening be too light-hearted is not good. I need Fortis to be taking this just as seriously. But he should do it from a different perspective. Huxton got to do it in his house, where it's comfortable and warm, which makes him think about his current situation, how good that is, would he want to leave it? And he's got the realities of watching people he knew who have now died in the previous night's attack, bringing up the reality of what it actually means to have an epic adventure. Fortis doesn't have that. He's fallen asleep and stayed in the village that night, so he doesn't have the perspective of being in a place that's familiar and like the comforts of home kind of situation, which means I need to sort of reverse. Okay, Huxton was kind of ashamed. Fortis needs to feel something like that, but in a different way. He should see it from the perspective of, because the orcs came and helped in the previous battle, so he's got to see it as an outsider, and he shouldn't have slept at all. He's not slept. at all. Unlike his friend. Here, on the floor of the village chapel to Snakar. Unfamiliar pedestal. Straw beneath. Borrow a blanket. What is not stepped at all, unlike his friend. Here on the floor of the village chapel to Snakar, adapted dictionary. On unfamiliar straw beneath a borrowed blanket. He had not dreamed. He had not dreamed, or the aches and pains of battle and hard labour. He had helped his fellow orcs assist their neighbours. Ah, got it. If you think about it, Fortis and Huxton wanted to go out into the world and help others bring peace. Fortis got to see what adventurers don't usually see, which is dealing with the aftermath, the rebuilding, stuff like that. So what he's seeing, so Huxton saw the death and destruction. Fortis sees the rebuilding effort and being there for, like, not strangers, but people who aren't orcs, for humans. And so he's seeing what it's like to go somewhere else and assist there, and how that impacts you and touches your heart and soul. He had helped his fellow orcs assist their neighbours. And he was troubled by how detached he was to the pain his village. The pain his village fought. No, because that's too much. That's too much like what Huxton was saying. And was troubled how attached he was to the effort. I suppose. Okay, we are running out of time, so I need to finish this thought with Fortis today. He had helped his fellow orcs assist their neighbours and was troubled by how attached he was to the effort to rebuild. He realised this was part of the decision he had made yesterday. Just clashing blades and broken bones. Yeah. Well, there wasn't any broken bones last time, and metal rended. Rent. Metal. Clashing blades and rent. Metal. Blades are metal. Can't do that. Maybe I should say broken bones. To be there for people to bring creed required more than just clashing blades and stirring words. He had helped his fellow orcs assist their neighbours, and was troubled by how attached he was to the effort to rebuild. He had realised that this was a part of the decision he had made yesterday. Pete Priest required more work than just clashing blades and stirring words. Was this really the life for him? Was this really the life for him? I gotta, like, in some ways reverse, but maintain how this affects Fortis and Huxton. Like, Huxton is seeing the reality. Fortis needs to see the reality, but from a different perspective, and he's doing it as the outsider. Was this really the life for him? Hang on a minute. Sleep hard, forest. Privileged happiness. Well deserved. Just hard, decent work for hard. Decent work, a reward to have your body refreshed. Yet he had not slept a wink. Heavy on his mind was thoughts of heavy on his mind were thoughts. Heavy on his mind were thoughts of duties he had not concerned himself. Okay. Would follow him on his chosen path. Okay, so I think that's enough of Fortis talking about how there are duties beyond just having the adventure. Now I need to. So that's a reflection, while still driving him forward, of what Fortis got in these paragraphs here. A sort of reality. So Fortis is getting another reality dose, but he's getting it in a different way by being an outsider. So Huxton was trying to make excuses in his mind by realising of what he would leave behind. Fortis has to do it differently, but it still needs to be an excuse to perhaps draw him away from it. Sleep hadn't done that for him, and he's waking up in an unfamiliar place. Thoughts of duties he hadn't realised would follow him on his chosen path. So hang on, if Huxton is seeing something familiar to drag him back, and Fortis doesn't have that, then Fortis needs something else to sort of. What could that be? The call of home instead? Like is he being dragged back home? Is he, does he want to go home? That's just the same as Huxton's. It's too similar. He had not slept a wink. Heavy on his mind were thoughts of duties he hadn't realised would follow him on his chosen path. Well, I suppose if Huxton is thinking about the past, you know, his present life in the village, the people he's lost, all the history that makes you love home so much, that he's kind of now leaning into an excuse not to do what he did, because he's realising how big of a decision he's made. Then Fortis, I almost had it but I lost it. I literally had the thought and it's gone. If you're a writer, this will happen to you frequently. It's one of the most frustrating things about the whole process. I literally had the answer, and because I had to review it, I lost it because I went too far away from it and didn't come back in time to remember. Huxton is using... Oh, that's it. If Huxton is using the past to give him an excuse not to go, Fortis uses the future. there we go. Would he, if he's waking up in an unfamiliar place, would he be waking? Put it in quotes. Would he, waking in such unfamiliar places again and again? Again. Nothing. Would he ever see this? Would he? Would he ever see the swamp again? Would he be waking up in such unfamiliar places again and again? Would he ever see the swamp? One more. Would he ever see the swamp one more? After it is. He's gonna. What would he do? Instead, he was laid to rest. Laid to rest in the dirt, in unfamiliar soil. Okay. I'm running out of time. Oh, well, I've run out of time. I'm going to stop there, but I'm actually going to teach you a trick. Okay. It's actually a bit, you might notice there's a lot of pausing of me as I try to think about what comes next. And as when you're typing, you might actually spend ages just doing this. Trying to make the connection in your head. And that can be very not off-putting. It can kind of make you dread writing, because you're sort of thinking, I can't think of the next thing. So that means I'll never make it to that part of the book that I'm actually looking forward to, which is fine. It's fine to have a part of your book that's actually better, you think, than some other part. But you kind of need to fill in that gap between this bit and this bit in order for that bit to make sense. And here's a tip if you want to be encouraged, to have the drive, to have the passion, to write the parts of the story that you perhaps don't want to write or aren't flowing from your brain right now. I put a space in here because I'm actually going to write right now the part where, which will happen in this chapter, is where Snakar's eye comes over. I'm going to ignore everything between there. That will fill in when we next do this. Instead, I just want to write it because it's actually something I look forward to. The argument's wisdom. So I imagine that this happens when everyone's sort of putting their oar in the water, isn't it? As the argument's wisdom and suggestions flew overhead. Exchanged. The sun, right? The sun came closer. The shadows lengthen. Actually, if a light source is coming closer to you, does this? If a light source is coming to you, what happens to your shadow? It shrinks. That's what I'm going with. If the light source is coming to you, your shadow gets larger and appears to move away from the light source. Okay, yeah, good. No, I'm wrong. I don't know why I thought it would go shorter, like the shadow's length. And the banter didn't stop. Until... Is there a word for shadows? Ah. Until the shades of the trees fell over. Okay. What I want, this is one of the parts I wanted to write, and it's going to help me write other parts I'm perhaps not too stoked about writing, because I want to get to this, and I want it to have a great foundation, and I want these words to matter. So I have to write what's going on here between this and this gap right here. I'm gonna have to make it work, you know, and it will flow better once I know I'm getting to this. And I need to write this great part now to drive me to write the rest, and also I think it will drive some creativity as well. As the arguments, wisdom and suggestions were exchanged, the sun came closer. The shadows lengthened, and the banter didn't stop until the shade of the trees fell on the crowd around Fortis and Huxton. Everyone ceased. As one of the twin suns stretched, and one of the twin suns arced over the back of the world. Using the phrase "the back of the world" is obviously alluding to the fact that you're on the shell of the world, but now I'm thinking, does a snail have different parts? Okay, nothing obvious, I'll continue going. Ceased as one of the twin suns arced over the back of the world. The light dimmed, a snug protected its world. I've already said world. Protected its creation. Oh, that's fine with me. Twin sun, as one of the twin suns arced over the back of the world. The light dimmed, protected its creation. Yet strived to look down and see. The giant eye of the Creator. Giant eye of the Creator's presence, the presence of the giant eye of the Creator pushed away clouds, Okay, this is where I'm going to stop. It looks upon us, Snakar. It looks upon us today. Eyeball. I don't want to say eyeball. I want the priest to say, Snakar looks upon us today, the priest uttered, as the eyeball. I don't want to say eyeball. The pupil? See what someone says. What about eye? Oculus. I like that. Sounds magical in some sense. When you know what I mean. The priest uttered as of all that ever was, of that which beheld, which held the universe, which carried. So what I was thinking of there, just as a slight thing about being very, I'm going to say poetic about the language you use when you write, is that I could just say priest uttered as the eyeball of the snail that carried the world, that beheld the world, looked down upon us. By using oculus, it sounds a bit, I think fantasy kind of needs this much more bolder language. And I was going to write which beheld the world, and it's like held the world in its hands. something that's almost always attributed to like high fantasy gods. You know, they carry the world in their hands, but Snakar doesn't do that. He carries it on the back, but that holds the same meaning as holding it on the back of the hand. I kind of have to alter the language to reflect the world building I've started. Snarl looks upon us today, the priest uttered, as the oculus of all that which carried their world. Watched. And that's where I'm going to leave it. I have looked forward to writing this little bit for ages, ever since I sort of started this, and there's lots of other things I'm looking forward to writing in the future, and I'm writing it now, and it's not complete. This is gonna take some editing, but it's nearly there, and it's like an amazing thing. Like, imagine that you're on the world right now, and the thing that you know created it and looks out for it, carries it, does its own duty in keeping life going, looked down to watch what was happening. An amazing, tremendous, awe-inspiring moment, and I need to obviously rewrite this a little bit so that it has even more epic. But now that I've written it, it's going to make filling this gap so much easier. And that's where I have to stop, because I've been blathering on for far too long for this video. Anyway, look out for Half Human, the prison key. It's out soon, and I want to show you something else before I go. On my website, mdrewery.co.uk. Let me see this. So this is it. If you go to menu and go along to Half Human, it says Half Human game, and you can play a game that we made using some basic computer software. And the idea is quite simple. You've got to knock these crates off here. Isn't that cool? I know it's very simple. It's like, I guess it's although it involves no angry poultry whatsoever, or angry ravens, or angry or frustrated, furious cassowaries or whatever. It's I know it's a bit like that game that I've alluded to just now, but it's also not like that. As you can see, I can fire all these different things at these crates to knock them off the platform, which is the entire part of the goal. You can change the direction from which you hit. You can also power up one to wham and knock them off these crates. And that's because every single one of these different items you can throw is based on the tribes of Ontaria, which appears in the book, and it's representing the different powers. It also includes this, which is Ryan, who, well, I won't say any more, but you should ask yourself this question: why does Ryan get to use all these different balls with this different properties? Well, you have to buy the book to find out. And even if, like, you don't want to play this 10 level thing where you have to fire the 10 stacks, you can also have some fun mode and just try and destroy this as much as you can. I'm going to use the Freyans, because look at that, it's just so much fun to play, and just go crazy trying to knock all this stuff off as fast as humanly possible. Like, are you faster with different... What's the quickest time you can do? I did that in 16 seconds. Only... That's odd. Why isn't the timer stopped? Oh, that's why. Bosh. There we go. Anyway, a game you can probably play. It's all part of our helping to promote, you know, Half Human. And what the hell is Nan-Nans? Why did it do that? Huh. I don't know what that is. Anyway, thank you so much for listening today. Go enjoy this game and have fun, because it is fun. Actually, I need to make some alterations. You should not have 10 of these. It just makes it too easy. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. Have a good morning, afternoon, and evening, wherever you are. Put some comments after the fact. If you have questions, I'll do my best to answer them. And I hope you enjoy Half Human, and I hope this has been helpful with your own writing. And go check out those other authors who are doing, essentially writing their books live as well. Thanks very much, and bye-bye.